My name is Carlos Vieira, and I'm going to tell you about the day the Marlowe mansion stopped feeling like a palace and started feeling like a witness. If you've ever loved someone so hard it made you afraid of losing them, you'll understand why this story still sits in my throat like a prayer I never finished. The Marlowe mansion lived on a hill like it owned the sky. At night, its windows glowed warm gold behind iron gates, and the gardens smelled of trimmed boxwood, wet stone, and roses that refused to die even after heavy rain. Inside, the air always carried a quiet hush, as if the walls had learned to listen more than they spoke. The grand foyer held a chandelier that scattered light like floating snow. The library smelled of leather and cedar. The music room still kept a faint perfume, soft and floral, like someone had walked through it yesterday, even though she hadn't. Elena Marlowe had been gone for 2 years, and yet she was everywhere. In the portrait above the staircase, in the linen closet where her lavender sachet still slept, in the greenhouse she used to call the breathing room, where morning light turned leaves into stained glass. Ethan Marlowe, billionaire, self-made, and once unshakable, moved through his own house as if he were borrowing it. Grief does that. It turns your life into a place you keep paying for, but can't truly inhabit. Every morning at exactly 6:10, he would stand in the kitchen and stare at the coffee machine without pressing a button, like the act of choosing a drink was too much commitment for a heart that had already chosen love and lost. And then there were the twins. Noah Marlowe, 9, quiet as falling dust, would sit in the sunroom with a sketchbook and draw what he couldn't say out loud. He had Down syndrome, and he also had an attention to detail that made grown adults feel clumsy, like he noticed the tiny shifts in people's faces before they noticed them in themselves. His hands were careful, his eyes deep, his silences full. Lucas Marlowe, 9, bright as a matchstick, loud in the most tender way, had Down syndrome too. He laughed like he meant it. He cried like he meant it. He hugged like he was trying to stitch people back together. In the twins' wing, 2 rooms separated by a connecting play space, Lucas had hung paper stars from the ceiling because, he said, "Mummy likes the sky." That morning, the mansion was preparing for a luncheon in the garden. The Elena Marlowe Children's Fund, an annual fundraiser Elena had created before she died. Ethan insisted on keeping it alive, even though the day tore him open every year. It was his way of saying, "I didn't protect her life, but I will protect her legacy." The catering staff moved like synchronized birds, setting white linens and crystal glasses. The fountains ran softly, string musicians tuned under a pergola, and beyond the hedges on the other side of the iron gates, a child stood on the sidewalk as if she had been planted there. Her name was Maya. She was small, maybe 8, wearing a thin jacket that had seen too many winters. Her sneakers were worn down at the toes. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot, and her hands held the bars of the gate like she was holding herself upright. When the wind kicked up, she didn't step back. She leaned in, eyes fixed on the tables in the garden, as if she was watching a scene she already knew the ending to. I was there that day because Ethan had agreed to a rare interview. He didn't like the press anymore. After Elena died, he stopped trusting cameras. But the fund mattered, and donors liked a story. So he allowed me in on the condition that I spoke with respect and left his children's privacy intact. I remember the way Ethan looked in the morning light. Expensive suit, tired eyes. His smile arrived late, like it had to walk through a storm to reach his face. "You're early, Carlos," he said. "I didn't want to miss anything," I told him. Ethan glanced toward the twins' wing as if his heart lived there and he only visited the rest of his body. "Nothing ever happens here," he murmured. "Not anymore." That was the lie grief tries to sell you. If you keep everything quiet enough, nothing bad can find you. In the garden, guests arrived in waves, women in pastel dresses, men in tailored jackets, laughter carried on the wind. Near the center table stood Dr. Priya Saeed, the fund's medical advisory chair, visibly pregnant, her hand resting on her belly as if she was reminding the world, there is a future coming. Ethan treated Priya like family. She'd helped him navigate therapy options for the twins, always careful, always ethical, always grounded. She never promised miracles. She only promised effort, and in Ethan's life, effort had become holy. A server approached Priya with a silver tray, holding 3 tall glasses of orange-colored juice. "Dr. Saeed," he said politely, "your requested blend, citrus with supplements." Priya smiled. "Thank you." Ethan's eyes softened as he watched. It was subtle, but I saw it. The way a man who'd lost a wife looked at a pregnant woman, not with desire but with awe and fear. Life was still brave enough to show up in front of him. Priya lifted the glass, and that's when the girl outside the gate screamed, "Don't drink that!" Her voice cut through the garden like a thrown stone. It wasn't a cute shout, it was terror. Raw, urgent, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper than thought. Every head turned. Security moved immediately, stepping toward the gate, hands already reaching for radios. The musicians stopped. Even the fountain seemed quieter. The girl gripped the bars. Her eyes were wide, shining in a way that made my stomach drop. "They put something in it," she cried. "Please don't drink it." Priya froze, the glass hovering near her lips. Ethan didn't hesitate. He crossed the lawn in 3 long strides, reached the tray, and with one sharp motion knocked the glasses off. They shattered on the stone with a bright, brittle sound. Orange liquid spread like spilled sunlight. A collective gasp rose from the guests. "Ethan!" someone snapped. Priya put a hand to her chest. "What are you doing?" Ethan's face had gone pale. He stared at the broken glass, then looked at the girl, Maya, like she had just dragged a truth into daylight. Security had Maya by the arms now, trying to pull her away from the gate. "Stop!" Ethan commanded, voice low but absolute. "Sir, she's trespassing," a guard said. "She's disturbing the event." Ethan walked toward the gate. The closer he got, the more his expression changed, not to anger, not to disgust, but to something like recognition, as if the shape of her face, the stubborn set of her jaw, the way she refused to look down, had touched a memory he kept locked. Ethan crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to her level through the bars. "What's your name?" he asked, gentler than I expected. The girl swallowed. "Maya." "Maya, what?" She hesitated, then said it like it was a shield and a wound at once. "Maya Alvarez." Something in Ethan's eyes flickered. The surname hit him in a place he didn't show guests. "Why did you say that?" he asked softly. "How did you know?" Maya's fingers tightened on the iron. "I saw it," she whispered. "The powder. It's like glitter, but wrong. My mum said, if it sparkles in a way that makes your throat feel cold, you don't swallow it." Priya stepped closer, trembling now, one hand over her belly. "You saw powder on my glass?" Maya nodded. "On the rim, on the one they put in front of you." A murmur moved through the crowd. People glanced at each other like they were deciding whether to believe a child who looked hungry over a doctor in pearls. Ethan turned to his head of staff. "Get Dr. Saeed's security detail in here, now, and call the lab team we use for fund compliance. Test the residue, immediately." Someone tried to laugh it off. An awkward, too loud sound. "It's just a kid making things up." Ethan's gaze snapped to them and the laughter died. "No," he said. "It's a kid saving a life." Then he did something I'd never seen a man like Ethan Marlowe do in public. He opened the gate. The guard hesitated. Ethan didn't. He took Maya's small hand, and he led her into the garden as if she belonged there. The contrast was brutal. Her thin jacket against the bright linen tablecloths, her scuffed shoes on polished stone. Guests stared. A few looked offended, as if poverty was a contagious stain. Maya's eyes darted everywhere, but she didn't shrink. She moved with the wary courage of a child who has learned that adults can be dangerous. Ethan brought her to the side of the garden, away from the crowd's noise. "Are you alone?" he asked. Maya's mouth tightened. I sleep near the bus station." Priya's eyes filled with tears. Ethan's jaw clenched like he was holding himself together with teeth. "Who taught you to notice things like that?" he asked. Maya's gaze dropped for the first time. "My mum," she said, "before she died." Ethan inhaled slowly, as if air was suddenly heavier. "What was her name?" Maya's voice went quiet. "Sophia." Ethan's throat moved like he swallowed a stone. "Sophia Alvarez." Maya nodded, and I watched Ethan's face change in a way that made my hands go cold. Grief recognized grief, and memory recognized a name. Before Ethan could speak again, from the doorway to the house, the twins appeared. Lucas ran first, slippers slapping softly against stone, hair wild. "Dad," he called, "you said garden time." Noah walked behind, slower, holding his sketchbook against his chest like it was a heart he could carry. Ethan turned, and the sight of his sons steadied him, like they were anchors in a sudden storm. Lucas spotted Maya and stopped mid-run. His face softened instantly. "Hi," he said, like greeting her was the most normal thing in the world. Maya blinked. "Hi." Lucas stepped closer, offering his hand without fear. "I'm Lucas. This is Noah." He pointed proudly. Noah didn't speak. He looked at Maya, then at the broken glass near the table. His eyes narrowed as if he was putting pieces together that no one else could see. Then he opened his sketchbook and, with a few quick strokes, drew a small circle with sparkles around it, then drew a line through it. A warning. Maya stared at the drawing like she'd just found someone who spoke her language. Ethan noticed that too. His gaze shifted from Maya to Noah, and something in him trembled. A staff member returned, breathless. "Sir, our compliance lab is on the way. 20 minutes. Ethan nodded, then looked down at Maya again. "You did the right thing," he said. "You could have been hurt for shouting like that." Maya's voice cracked for the first time. "I couldn't let her drink it," she whispered, eyes on Priya's belly. Because babies don't get to choose who keeps them safe." That line hit the garden like a bell. Even the guests who had doubted her looked away, ashamed. Priya knelt carefully, face gentle. "Thank you," she said. "You protected my child." Maya's shoulders shook. "My mom used to say, when you see danger, you become a lighthouse, even if you're small." Ethan's eyes filled. He looked away fast, but it was too late. I saw it, the wet shine, the fracture in his composure. Then the lab team arrived, and the mansion's calm turned into controlled panic. A technician collected glass shards, swabbed the stone where the juice had spilled, and tested the residue under a portable light. No announcements yet, just quiet murmurs and serious faces. Ethan stood rigid, arms crossed, watching as if his will could force truth to be gentle. The technician finally approached Ethan, voice low. "Mr. Marlowe, there was an additive on the rim, not part of the approved blend." Priya's hand flew to her mouth. Ethan's knees seemed to soften. He caught himself on the edge of a chair, staring at the technician like he couldn't accept what he already knew. "Would it have harmed her?" he asked. The technician hesitated, choosing careful words. "It could have caused severe complications for her and the pregnancy." Ethan's face crumpled. In the middle of a garden full of wealthy donors, cameras, and polished smiles, Ethan Marlowe bowed his head and cried. Not a dramatic sob, something quieter, something older, like a man grieving every time he failed to keep life safe. Elena, and now this. And while the guests stood frozen, unsure what to do with the sight of a billionaire breaking, Maya reached up and touched Ethan's sleeve. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to ruin the pretty day." Ethan turned toward her, eyes red, voice shaking. "You didn't ruin anything," he said. "You saved something." Then Noah took a step forward, lifted his sketchbook, and held it up for Ethan to see. He had drawn the broken glass, the sparkles, and then, above it all, a butterfly. Elena's symbol. Ethan stared at that butterfly like it had spoken. And that's when I realized the poison wasn't the biggest secret walking into the Marlowe mansion that day. It was the fact that Maya Alvarez had just stepped into Elena Marlowe's shadow, as if Elena had been waiting for her. And the moment Ethan whispered, "How do you know the butterfly?" I knew the mansion was about to confess what it had been hiding. Ethan didn't allow Maya to be led away. He didn't call the police on her. He didn't treat her like a problem to be managed. He brought her inside. The Marlowe mansion swallowed her the way oceans swallow stones, quietly, completely. The foyer's marble floor reflected her small body like a question. The chandelier above glittered like it was mocking the word sparkle she had used. The air smelled of lemon polish and old roses, and Maya stood very still like she didn't trust beauty. "Get her food," Ethan ordered, then softened his voice immediately. "Something warm, something she can hold." A housekeeper rushed off. Priya, pale but steady, insisted on being checked by the fund's medical team. No drama, no wild claims, just caution. Ethan approved full support, then sent her to rest in the downstairs guest suite, where Elena's favorite paintings hung on the walls. The irony wasn't lost on him. Even in crisis, Elena's presence remained the quiet center. In the library, Ethan sat across from Maya at a long table that looked built for negotiations between powerful men, not conversations with a child whose hands still had street dust under the nails. Noah and Lucas hovered in the doorway until Ethan waved them closer. Lucas climbed onto a chair without asking. Noah stood beside the table, sketchbook pressed against his chest, eyes scanning Maya's face like he was reading a story written in expressions. "My sons," Ethan said, voice careful. Noah. Lucas, this is Maya. Lucas leaned forward, grinning. You saved the baby, he said, impressed as if bravery was the best kind of magic. Maya blinked. I just shouted. That's brave, Lucas declared. I shout when I'm scared too. Noah slowly opened his sketchbook and drew 3 small taps on paper. Tap, tap, tap. Then drew a heart beside it. Lucas smiled. That's our thing, he explained to Maya. We do 3 taps for I'm here. Maya's shoulders loosened a fraction. My mom used to knock on the wall 3 times at night, she whispered, so I'd know she was still awake. Lucas's face softened, like he could feel her loneliness in his bones. Then you can do it with us, he said simply. 3 taps means you're not alone. That was the first time I saw the secret bond form, the private language that would later hold them steady when adults failed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't announced, it just appeared, the way light appears when someone opens curtains. A housekeeper returned with soup and bread. Maya held the bowl with both hands and breathed in the steam like it was safety. Ethan watched her eat, and I could see his mind running backward through years, calculating what had happened outside his notice. Wealth has a way of convincing people that suffering is elsewhere. Maya, sitting at his table, tore that lie into pieces. You asked me about the butterfly, Maya said quietly, eyes on her soup. Ethan stilled. Yes, Maya swallowed. My mum worked sometimes at a place with butterflies painted on the wall. She called it the butterfly room. She said it belonged to a lady who smelled like lavender and didn't talk down to her. Ethan's breath caught. The greenhouse. Elena used to call it the butterfly room because she hung paper butterflies from the ceiling for the twins. What was your mother's full name? Ethan asked, voice low. Maya hesitated, then said it like she was opening a locked door. Sophia Alvarez. She cleaned houses, sometimes fancy ones. Ethan's hand tightened around a glass of water. Did she ever work here? Maya nodded. Once, maybe twice. She cried afterward. Not because people were mean. She said they were kind. She cried because she said the house felt like a song she couldn't sing anymore. Ethan closed his eyes. Eleanor had invited women from shelters and community programs into the fund's orbit quietly, without press, without credit. She called it doing good without turning it into jewelry. Ethan had loved that about her, and he had also underestimated how many lives Elena had touched without telling anyone. Lucas reached for Maya's sleeve, gentle. Did your mom go to heaven? He asked, voice small. Maya's eyes watered. I think so. Lucas nodded firmly. My mom is there too, he said. Sometimes when I'm sad, I tell her in my head. She answers in my chest. Noah drew a small ear beside a heart, then pointed to his own chest. He wasn't saying it with words, but the meaning was clear. I hear love inside. Maya stared at Noah's drawing like it was a miracle that didn't break any rules. No promises, no magic cures, just a child translating grief into something gentler. Ethan cleared his throat. Maya, he said, why were you at the gate today? Maya's fingers tightened around the bowl. I heard there would be food, she admitted, shame in her voice. Sometimes rich people have parties and leftovers. Sometimes someone gives you something. Ethan's face tightened. A billionaire hearing a child talk about scavenging leftovers is not a comfortable thing. It's a mirror you can't look away from. But I wasn't going to come in, Maya rushed. I was just watching. Then I saw the man by the juice. Ethan leaned forward. Describe him. Maya frowned, concentrating. He was wearing staff clothes, but he didn't move like staff. He moved like he owned the place. He stood too close to the tray when nobody was looking. He poured something small, like powder, from a tube. Then he wiped his finger on the napkin and smiled like he knew something. Ethan's jaw tightened. Did you see his face? Maya nodded. Yes. Ethan inhaled slowly. Could you recognize him again? Maya looked up, eyes steady. I can. Outside the library, the mansion's security chief, Mr. Darnell, spoke quietly with Ethan's legal counsel. Ethan listened with the kind of focus grief could never steal from him when it came to protecting children. The compliance report confirms tampering, Darnell said. We can't identify the substance on site. Authorities will want statements. Ethan nodded. They'll get them. The lawyer, Ms. Hargrove, stiff-backed and efficient, added, and the fund's board will demand answers. Ethan's eyes flicked. Let them demand. I noticed how that sentence didn't sound like a billionaire flexing. It sounded like a father choosing war against a system that didn't care who it crushed, because the villain wasn't going to be one person with a bottle. It was going to be the machinery surrounding the Marlowe fortune, the trust committee, the board members who believed they had the right to decide what happened to Ethan's children, the legal scaffolding that could strip custody under the right pressure. And pressure was coming. It always does when money smells fear. That evening, after the guests were dismissed and the garden was cleared, Ethan insisted Maya stay in the mansion under protection until they knew who tampered with the drink. He didn't say it like charity. He said it like policy. "You're safe here tonight," he told her. Maya stared at the carpet, thick and soft. "Safe is hard to believe," she whispered. Lucas slid off his chair and tapped 3 times on the table. Tap, tap, tap. Maya hesitated, then tapped back. Noah smiled. Small, private, real. A few hours later, I walked past the twins' wing and saw something that made my throat tighten. Maya stood in the connecting play space, staring at the paper stars Lucas had hung. Noah sat on the floor, drawing. Lucas lay on his stomach beside him, humming quietly. Maya whispered, "Your mom liked the sky?" Lucas nodded. "Mommy said the sky holds our tears so we don't drown." Maya's face crumpled. "My mom used to say, tears are rain for the soul." Noah held up a drawing, a butterfly floating between 2 houses. Maya sank to the floor without asking permission. For the first time, she looked like a child instead of a survivor. Later, Ethan and I spoke in the study. The room smelled of smoke from the fireplace and old paper. Elena's portrait sat on the mantel, her eyes painted in a way that always made you feel like she was about to speak. "I don't believe in coincidences anymore," Ethan said, staring at the fire. "Not after Elena." "Do you think Elena knew Maya?" I asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Elena knew everyone who needed kindness. She just didn't advertise it." He went quiet, then added, "Carlos, if this had happened 2 years ago, if Elena had been alive, she would have walked straight up to that child and wrapped her in a blanket before anyone could question it." "And you?" I asked. Ethan's voice broke. "I would have told Elena to be careful, to let the staff handle it, to not bring complications into the house." He stared at the fire like he hated himself for the truth. Elena was the brave one. I was the one who thought money could keep danger outside the gates. A knock interrupted us. Darnell entered, face tight. "Sir," he said quietly, "we have an issue." Ethan stood instantly. "What?" "The trust committee's chair is on the phone. They've been informed about the attempted poisoning. They want an emergency meeting tonight." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Tonight?" "Yes, sir. And they're requesting the twins be present for welfare evaluation." My stomach dropped. Welfare evaluation was the kind of phrase that sounded reasonable until you understood it could be used like a crowbar. Ethan's expression went cold in a way I hadn't seen all day. "They're not evaluating my children," he said. Darnell swallowed. "They said if you refuse, they'll petition the court for temporary oversight due to security failures at a children's charity event." There it was. The system. The institutional villain that didn't need a gun. It only needed paperwork. Ethan turned toward Elena's portrait. For a moment, his shoulders sagged like he was about to beg the air for help. Then his spine straightened. "No," he said. Not to Darnell, not to me, but to the whole invisible machine that thought it could reach into his family. "Not again." In the hallway, a soft sound echoed. Tap, tap, tap. Ethan looked toward the twins' wing. And in that moment, I realized the biggest danger wasn't the powder on a glass. It was the fact that the trust committee had smelled blood in the water, and they were already swimming toward the twins. And if Ethan didn't learn how to fight with something deeper than money, he was going to lose more than he could bear. The emergency meeting was called confidential, which in wealthy circles usually means designed to control the narrative. They gathered in the mansion's boardroom, a room that looked like it had been built to swallow dissent. Dark wood, heavy chairs, a long table polished so perfectly it reflected the ceiling like a second world. Ethan sat at one end, hands clasped, jaw tight. Ms. Hargrove sat beside him, legal pad open. 2 security advisors stood near the door. And across from Ethan sat the trust committee, 3 board members, a representative from the family office, and a court-appointed child welfare consultant, who smiled too often. They spoke in calm voices, but calm can be cruel when it's used to disguise power. "We're all relieved Dr. Saeed wasn't harmed," the committee chair, Mr. Caldwell, began, "but the event suggests a breakdown in safety protocols." Ethan's eyes didn't move. An attempted crime suggests someone attempted a crime. Caldwell's smile stayed. And safety failures allow crimes to occur. Ethan leaned slightly forward. The poison didn't touch my sons. The welfare consultant, Ms. Lynn, folded her hands. Mr. Marlowe, with respect, your household has already experienced significant trauma. A deceased spouse, 2 children with additional support needs, and now an attempted tampering incident on your property. The court will want assurances. Lucas would have hated that phrase. Support needs. Not because it was untrue, but because people used it as a way to talk about him like a project, not a person. Ethan's voice stayed controlled. My sons are safe. Caldwell's tone sharpened by half a degree. Then you won't mind an evaluation. No, Ethan said. Silence. Ms. Lynn blinked slowly. Refusal can be interpreted as non-cooperation. Ethan's fingers tightened. My children are not props for your paperwork. Ms. Hargrove cleared her throat. We will not be allowing the minors to be brought into this room tonight. Caldwell's smile vanished. Mr. Marlowe, the fund's bylaws. Forget the bylaws, Ethan cut in. That was the first time I saw him truly defy the system that had shaped his wealth. Not a press statement, not a donation, a refusal. Then the consultant tilted her head. And what about the child you brought into the mansion today? She asked, voice honeyed. The one who caused the disturbance. Ethan's eyes flashed. Her name is Maya. Ms. Lynn nodded politely. Is she under your guardianship? Ethan's jaw tightened. She's under my protection, until authorities identify the person who tampered with the drink. Caldwell leaned back. A homeless child on your property after a security incident. Mr. Marlowe, do you understand how that appears? Ethan stared at him, disgust rising. It appears like a child needed safety. It appears like negligence, Caldwell replied calmly, and I felt the temperature in the room drop. That's how the system works. It takes compassion and reframes it as liability. Ethan stood so suddenly his chair scraped the floor. Meeting's over. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. If you walk out, Mr. Marlowe, the trust will file for temporary oversight by morning. Ethan paused, breath tight. For a moment, I saw the old Ethan, the man who thought money could buy peace, waver. Then I saw something else. A father learning in real time that love forces you into fights you didn't train for. He walked out anyway. In the hallway, he braced a hand against the wall as if the mansion itself was the only thing holding him upright. His eyes shut. His lips moved silently. I didn't hear the words at first. Then I realized he was praying, not performing, not pretending. Just a man whispering to God because he didn't know who else could hold the fear. My wife, he murmured, voice breaking. Elena, if you can hear me, I'm trying. Behind him, the corridor filled with soft footsteps. Rosa Dela Cruz, newly hired caregiver for the twins, stood at a respectful distance, her expression worried. Rosa had arrived 3 days earlier, recommended by a therapy coordinator Elena once trusted. She was 28, with kind eyes that had seen hardship. She wore her hair pulled back, hands always ready to help, but never grabbing. Ethan had hired her because the twins responded to her immediately, and because she carried herself like someone who didn't need the Marlowe name to feel worthy. I'd learned her story in fragments. Her grandmother raised her, and now her grandmother was sick. And Rosa's job at the Marlowe mansion wasn't just employment, it was a lifeline. If she lost it, her grandmother's care would collapse. Rosa approached gently. Mr. Marlowe, she said softly, the boys are asking for you. Ethan wiped his eyes quickly, ashamed to be seen breaking, but Rosa didn't flinch. She didn't pretend not to notice. She just stood there like a steady tree. In the twins' wing, Lucas was pacing, restless. Noah sat on the bed with his sketchbook, drawing hard lines like he was trying to cage his worry. When Ethan entered, Lucas rushed him. Dad, the table people were mean, he blurted. They want to take us. Ethan crouched, putting his hands on Lucas's shoulders. No one is taking you, he said, but his voice trembled and Lucas heard it. Lucas's face crumpled. You're scared. Ethan swallowed. I am. Lucas hugged him fiercely. Then hug me back, he demanded. Big, like bear. Ethan did. He held Lucas like holding him could keep the world from stealing anything else. Noah walked forward slowly and held up his sketchbook. He had drawn a courtroom, big black shapes, a small stick figure labeled Dad, and 2 smaller ones labeled N and L. Above them, a butterfly hovered like protection. Ethan's throat tightened. I won't let them, he whispered to Noah. Noah touched Ethan's wrist gently, then tapped 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Ethan tapped back. In the corner, Maya sat on the floor, hugging her knees. She looked small in a room built for children with everything. Soft blankets, toys, warm lighting. She looked like she didn't believe it was allowed to be hers. Rosa sat beside her slowly, not too close. You okay? Rosa asked. Maya shrugged. I don't like suits, she muttered. Suits mean someone is about to decide your life. Rosa's eyes softened with recognition, like she'd been that child too. You've been in the system, Rosa said quietly. Maya nodded. Foster. They said I was too much. I warned them about bad stuff. Nobody liked it. Rosa exhaled. Some people hate mirrors, she murmured, especially when kids hold them up. Maya looked at Rosa, studying her. You're not like them. Rosa gave a small, sad smile. I've been poor in nice rooms before. You learn the difference between kindness and performance. That night, after the twins fell asleep, Lucas clutching a paper star, Noah's sketchbook tucked under his pillow, Rosa sat with Ethan in the kitchen. The mansion was quieter at night, like it finally exhaled. The refrigerator hummed. Rain tapped against the window. A faint lavender scent lingered from Elena's sachets. Ethan stared at his coffee without drinking it. Rosa folded her hands, then spoke gently. Mr. Marlowe, you're fighting people who aren't afraid to use the court. Ethan's voice was hollow. They want my sons. They'll say I'm unstable, that I'm making reckless decisions. Rosa hesitated, then said carefully, Then don't fight them alone. Ethan gave a humorless laugh. I have lawyers. Rosa's eyes didn't blink. You need witnesses. You need truth. And you need faith. Ethan looked at her sharply, like the word offended him. Rosa continued softly. Not faith like a slogan. Faith like when you don't know how you'll get through the next hour, but you still choose to do right. Ethan stared at the rain, jaw trembling. I prayed in the hallway, he admitted. I haven't prayed since Elena died. I felt stupid. Rosa's voice warmed. It's not stupid to ask God for strength. It's brave. Ethan's eyes filled again. I don't know how to be brave without Elena. Rosa leaned in slightly, voice quiet but firm. Then borrow bravery from the people around you until you remember you still have it. In the next room, a soft sound. Tap, tap, tap. Ethan looked toward the twins' wing, like that sound was a lifeline. Then Maya appeared in the doorway, holding something in her hand, a folded paper worn and creased. I have something, she whispered. Ethan stood slowly. What is it? Maya held it out. A note. My mum. She told me if I ever found the butterfly house, I should give this to the man with sad eyes. Ethan's breath caught. He took the paper with trembling fingers. The handwriting on it was neat, feminine, familiar. Eleanor Marlowe's handwriting. Ethan's knees weakened. He caught the edge of the counter. Rosa stepped closer instinctively, ready to steady him. Ethan opened the note, and as his eyes moved over the words, his face shattered, like the letter didn't just contain information, but a piece of Elena's voice. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then he whispered, broken. She knew. Rosa's brow furrowed. What does it say? Ethan's throat worked. He looked at Maya, then at Rosa, then toward the sleeping twins' wing. It says, Ethan whispered, that Maya isn't here by accident, and that the trust committee has been watching my sons longer than I ever realized. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant, not violent, just heavy, like a warning already in motion. And in that kitchen full of quiet grief and paper stars, Ethan Marlowe realized the poison on the glass was just the first move. The real threat was already inside the system. And Elena had left instructions, as if she knew Ethan would one day need help saving his children from people who smiled while they stole. The next morning, the mansion woke up with tension in its bones. The light was pale, the kind that makes everything look honest. Security checkpoints doubled. Phones rang behind closed doors. Ethan's legal team arrived early, faces tight. Ethan hadn't slept. He sat in the greenhouse, the butterfly room, holding Eleanor's note like it could dissolve if he breathed wrong. The greenhouse smelled of wet soil and mint. Rainwater clung to the glass roof in beads that trembled with every gust of wind. Paper butterflies hung from strings near the ceiling, gently rotating in the air currents. Rosa entered quietly, carrying 2 mugs of tea. She placed one near Ethan without speaking. She understood the kind of grief that doesn't want conversation. It wants presence. Ethan finally spoke, voice low. Elena wrote this weeks before she died. Rosa sat opposite him. What did she know? Ethan swallowed. She knew the trust committee would come for the twins if anything ever made me look unstable. Rosa's eyes narrowed. Because they see the boys as assets. Ethan nodded, shame and rage mixing. Eleanor wrote that the committee believes the twins' future should be managed, that my grief makes me unreliable. She wrote that if an incident ever occurred on Marlowe property that involved children or public safety, they'd use it. Rosa's jaw tightened. So the poison wasn't just about Dr. Saeed. Ethan's voice cracked. It was about making me look like I can't protect anyone. Rosa exhaled slowly. That's a system villain, she whispered. Not a person, a machine. Ethan's eyes filled again. And Elena. She left a file. She said she hid evidence where the committee wouldn't look because they'd consider it unimportant. Rosa frowned. Where? Ethan looked toward the twins' wing, then toward the hallway beyond the greenhouse. In the children's art cabinet, he said. Rosa's lips parted. Because they underestimate kids. Ethan nodded, grief twisting into something sharper. And they underestimate Eleanor. They moved carefully, quietly. Not like sneaking, but like respecting a house full of sleeping hearts. The twins were in their pajamas, eating toast. Lucas had jam on his cheek. Noah was tracing a butterfly shape in the condensation on his water glass. When Ethan entered, Lucas brightened. Dad, is today safe? He asked, blunt as truth. Ethan crouched. We're making it safe, he said. Noah watched Ethan's face. Then Noah reached for Ethan's hand and held it, just for a second, like a small anchor. Maya sat at the table too, wearing a clean borrowed sweater. She looked less like a ghost, but still wary. Rosa opened the art cabinet slowly. Inside were crayons, colored pencils, paper, glue, ordinary. But at the back, taped beneath a false panel, Rosa's fingers found a sealed envelope. Ethan's breath caught. Rosa slid it out and placed it in front of him. The seal was a simple wax stamp, a butterfly. Elena. Ethan's hands trembled as he broke it open. Inside was a flash drive, a small notebook, and a folded letter. Ethan read the first lines and went pale. Rosa leaned in to see. The letter was from Elena, calm and precise. It described concerns about the trust committee, unusual requests, private meetings, pressure for welfare evaluations, and the presence of a consultant who had quietly tried to document the twins' behavior without Ethan's consent months earlier. Eleanor wrote that she had documented everything and stored copies with a third party. A protective plan. Not vengeance, protection. And then, at the bottom, Eleanor wrote one line that made Ethan's breath stop. Maya Alvarez is connected to the fund. Trust her instincts. She saved someone once before. Ethan stared at the page like Eleanor had just walked into the room. Lucas leaned closer, peering at the paper. Mommy wrote that? He whispered. Ethan nodded, eyes wet. Lucas pressed his forehead to Ethan's arm. Mommy still helps us, he said, voice cracking, even when she's not here. Noah drew a butterfly on a blank sheet and slid it toward Maya. Maya's eyes filled. Your mom, she knew me? She whispered. Ethan looked at Maya, voice gentle. Tell me about Sophia, he said. Tell me everything you can. Maya swallowed. My mom cleaned offices. Sometimes she cleaned the fund building. She said the lady with lavender gave her food and didn't make her feel small. Rosa's expression softened. That sounds like Elena. Maya's voice shook. My mum said Elena told her if anything ever happened, she should come to the mansion gates and look for the butterflies. Ethan's throat tightened. Why would Elena tell her that? Maya hesitated, then pulled something from her pocket. A thin chain with a small charm. Another butterfly. My mom said Elena gave her this, Maya whispered. Hannah said, if the system tries to eat you, come here. The words landed hard. Elena had known the system could eat people like Sophia, and she had built a secret door for them. Before anyone could speak, Darnell appeared at the doorway, urgent. Sir, court courier at the gate. Ethan stood instantly. Already? Darnell nodded. Emergency petition. Temporary oversight request. They're moving fast. Rosa's jaw tightened. They're using the poisoning attempt. Ethan looked at the letter, then at the flash drive. We have evidence, he said, But evidence has to survive the process, Rosa replied quietly, and the process is designed to crush you. A knock again, harder. Another guard entered. Mr. Marlowe, the welfare consultant, arrived with court documentation. She's demanding access to the twins' wing. Lucas's eyes widened. No, he whispered. No strangers in our rooms. Noah's hands trembled slightly. He drew fast, heavy lines, storm lines. Ethan looked at his sons and felt something in him snap into clarity. Not today, he said. He moved with purpose now, not panic. Darnell, activate the family security protocol. Ms. Hargrove, contact the judge directly with Elena's documented timeline. Rosa, stay with the boys and Maya. Rosa nodded. Steady. Ethan turned to the twins, lowering his voice. Noah, Lucas, I need you to trust me. Lucas's lips trembled. Will they take us? Ethan swallowed hard. Not if I stand. Noah walked to Ethan and pressed his forehead gently against Ethan's chest, like a tiny blessing. Then he tapped 3 times on Ethan's heart. Tap, tap, tap. Ethan pressed his hand over Noah's and tapped back. In the hallway, Ms. Lynn's voice rose, polite, firm, relentless. Mr. Marlowe, refusal to cooperate will be documented. Ethan stepped out to meet her, expression controlled. You will not enter my children's rooms without my consent. Ms. Lynn smiled. The court has ordered a welfare check. Ms. Hargrove arrived beside Ethan, document in hand. We have filed an immediate objection. This is being handled. Ms. Lynn's eyes flicked past them toward the twins' wing. Children deserve protection, Mr. Marlowe. Ethan's voice went quiet, dangerous. Then stop using them as leverage. Ms. Lynn's smile tightened. We only want what's best. That phrase, what's best, has been used to steal children from parents for centuries. Ethan took a breath, then did something that surprised everyone. He stepped aside and opened his palms slightly, showing he wasn't going to fight physically. I will cooperate, he said. Ms. Lynn's smile returned. Ethan continued, with conditions. You will meet the children in the music room with their caregiver present with recording and with a child advocate of our choosing. Ms. Lynn hesitated. That is not standard. Neither is an attempted tampering incident at a charity event, Ethan replied. We're done with standard. They moved to the music room. The grand piano sat in the corner, polished black. Elena used to play it softly when the twins couldn't sleep. The room smelled faintly of cedar and old sheet music. Lucas sat close to Rosa. Maya sat near the window, hands clasped. Noah held his sketchbook like armor. Ms. Lynn tried to speak in a bright voice. Hello, boys. I'm here to make sure you're okay. Lucas frowned. Are you here to take us? Ms. Lynn blinked. No, sweetheart. Lucas's voice rose, shaky but strong. Don't call me sweetheart if you don't know my favorite color. Rosa's eyes watered. That was Lucas, tender and fierce. Noah opened his sketchbook and held up a drawing. A big hand labeled Court, reaching toward 2 small hands labeled Noah and Lucas. Above it, a butterfly hovered, and beneath it, 3 taps drawn like a code. Ms. Lynn smiled too widely. That's very expressive. Maya suddenly stood. You don't care if they're okay, she said, voice trembling. You care if the paper says they're okay. Ms. Lynn's gaze sharpened. And who are you? Maya swallowed. Someone who sees things. Ethan's heart pounded. He glanced at Maya, warning in his eyes. Careful. But Maya's voice steadied. The person who put the powder on the glass works for the trust committee. Silence slammed into the room. Ms. Lynn's smile vanished. Ethan's blood ran cold. Maya, he said softly. Are you sure? Maya nodded, eyes fixed on Ms. Lynn. The tube. The same logo. I saw it on a folder when I was outside the garden. The man held it like he didn't care who saw. Ms. Lynn's face tightened. This is ridiculous, she snapped, losing her calm. This child is unreliable. Rosa stood slowly, calm but firm. She saved a pregnant woman yesterday. That's not unreliable. Ms. Lynn's voice rose again. Mr. Marlowe, you're surrounding your children with unstable influences. Ethan's voice broke through, deep and shaking. Enough. He turned to Rosa, eyes raw. And then, right there, in the music room, with the consultant watching, with lawyers and guards and children, Ethan Marlowe did the unthinkable. He lowered himself to his knees in front of Rosa. The room froze. Rosa's hands flew to her mouth. Mr. Marlowe, Ethan's voice cracked. I need you, he whispered. I've tried to fight this with money and power. It's not enough. I don't know how to protect them without someone who understands what the system does to people. Tears rolled down his face in front of everyone. I'm asking you, he said, as a father who's terrified, please don't leave this house. Please help me keep my son safe. Please, help me do what Elena would do. Rosa's eyes filled. She looked at the twins, Lucas trembling, Noah watching with quiet intensity, then at Maya, a child whose courage had cracked open a mansion's secrets. Rosa swallowed. I'm here, she whispered. I won't run. Lucas sobbed and threw his arms around Ethan's shoulders. Dad, he cried, your heart is loud. Noah reached forward and tapped Ethan's shoulder 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was small, but it felt like the mansion itself answered. Ms. Lynn stepped back, shaken by the scene. Systems don't know what to do when power kneels. Ms. Hargrove lifted the flash drive. We have documented evidence from Elena Marlowe, she said calmly, and we have a child witness to the tampering, plus compliance confirmation. This evaluation is now contested. Ms. Lynn's face tightened. The trust committee will not... Ethan stood slowly, wiping his face. His voice was calm now, terrifyingly calm. The trust committee will learn a new truth today, he said. My sons are not an investment. They are my sons. A phone rang. Darnell answered, listened, and his eyes widened. Sir, he said quietly, the lab just identified the supplier of the additive. It traces back to a vendor, contracted by the trust committee. Ethan closed his eyes for 1 second, like a man bracing against the weight of proof. When he opened them again, he looked toward Elena's portrait in the hallway. Okay, he whispered, almost like prayer. Now we fight. And that's when Maya, voice shaking, added the final piece that turned the room to ice. They didn't want to hurt the pregnant lady, she whispered. They wanted everyone to see you fail, so they could take the twins. And as Ethan stared at his sons, 2 boys with paper stars and brave hearts, he realized the war wasn't coming. It was already here. The trust committee filed again by afternoon, faster than most families can file a school absence note. That's how you know you're not fighting a person. You're fighting a machine with fuel and practice. But Ethan had Elena's evidence now. He had compliance reports, he had witness statements, and he had something he hadn't had in years, people who didn't treat him like a headline. Still, the pressure crushed him in private. That evening, security escorted Ms. Lynn off the property, but the damage lingered like smoke. Ethan sat in the mansion's security office, small plane, all monitors and quiet hum, staring at camera feeds like watching enough angles could guarantee safety. Rosa stood near the door. Maya sat on a chair too big for her, swinging her feet slowly. Noah and Lucas were with Darnell's team in the family lounge, supervised, safe, not hidden, protected. Ethan's hands shook. They're going to keep coming, he whispered. Rosa didn't deny it. Yes, she said softly, but you're not alone anymore. Ethan looked at Maya. You saved Priya, he said, and you saved my sons. Maya's face tightened. I didn't save them, she whispered. I just yelled. Ethan's voice broke. That's saving, he said. That's courage. Maya's eyes dropped. Courage is when you're small and nobody listens but you still tell the truth. Rosa's hand moved, then stopped. She didn't touch Maya without permission. Instead, she tapped the table 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Maya stared, then tapped back. Ethan watched, confusion and wonder mixing. What is that? Rosa smiled faintly. 3 taps means, I'm here. The boys taught her. Ethan's throat tightened. Elena would have loved that. Silence sat between them for a moment, heavy but not empty. Then Miss Hargrove entered with a folder. We have a hearing scheduled, she said. Emergency review. The trust wants temporary oversight. The judge is known to favor stability arguments. Ethan's jaw tightened. Stability, he repeated, bitter. They're going to use my grief. Miss Hargrove nodded. They will try. Rosa's eyes sharpened. Then we show the judge the truth, she said. Not just documents. Your children's reality. Ethan laughed once, harsh. They'll see 2 boys with Down syndrome and think they need to be managed. Rosa's voice softened. No, they'll see 2 boys who are loved, supported, safe, and a father who shows up. Ethan's eyes filled. Showing up isn't enough when the system has its own hunger. Rosa stepped closer, voice quiet, steady. Then you show up with humility, she said. Not pride, not money. Humility. People can argue with your power. They can't argue with your love if you let it be seen. Ethan swallowed hard. I'm not good at that. Rosa's gaze held him. Then learn. That night, the twins asked for Ethan before bed. Lucas sat cross-legged in his room under the paper stars. His cheeks were still damp from crying earlier, but his eyes were bright. Dad, he said, the suit lady. She made my stomach hurt. Ethan sat beside him. I know. Lucas touched Ethan's face gently. Do you still have Mommy's smell? He asked. Ethan's throat tightened. Sometimes, he whispered. Lucas nodded solemnly. Keep it, he said. So when you feel lost, you can sniff love. Ethan let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob. He pressed his forehead to Lucas's. Noah sat on his bed, sketchbook open. He drew slowly and then held it up. A heart drawn like a house with 4 stick figures inside. Dad, Noah, Lucas, Maya. Above them, a butterfly. Ethan's eyes filled. Maya, too, he whispered. Noah nodded once, firm. Ethan swallowed. Okay, he whispered. We make the house bigger. In the hallway, Maya waited, arms wrapped around herself. Ethan stepped out, crouched slightly so he didn't tower over her. Maya, he said, I don't know what happens next. But I know this. You will not go back to the street. Maya's eyes narrowed with fear. They'll take me, she whispered. The system takes kids. Ethan's voice softened. Not if I stand in front of you. Maya's mouth trembled. Adults say that, she whispered. Then they leave. Ethan's eyes filled. I'm not leaving, he said, and I'll prove it. The next morning, the hearing took place via secured video conference, an intentional choice by the court due to safety concerns after the attempted tampering incident. The judge appeared on a screen, stern, tired, practiced. The trust committee's attorney spoke first, calm and polished. He referenced the poisoning incident, the presence of an unknown minor on the property, and Ethan's emotional volatility as a widower. Ethan listened, fists clenched under the desk. Then Ms. Hargrove presented Elena's documentation, the timeline, the suspicious consultant behavior, the vendor trace, the compliance lab confirmation. It was solid, but systems can still twist solid things if they want. The trust attorney leaned in, voice syrupy. Even if there was tampering, he argued, Mr. Marlowe's judgment remains questionable. He brought a homeless child into the home during an active investigation. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Marlowe, she said, why did you do that? Ethan's throat tightened. This was the moment where money would usually speak, where power would usually perform. But Rosa's words lived in him now. Show up with humility. Ethan took a breath. Because she was a child, he said simply, and because she was brave. The judge blinked. Brave? Ethan nodded. She shouted a warning. She likely prevented severe harm to a pregnant guest. The trust attorney scoffed lightly. A child's claim. Maya's small voice came from off-camera, shaky but clear. I'm not a claim, she said. The judge startled slightly. Who is speaking? Ethan looked toward Maya, sitting beside Rosa. Your Honor, he said gently, this is Maya Alvarez. I requested she be allowed to speak with advocate supervision. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Briefly, Maya swallowed. Her hands trembled. Rosa tapped 3 times on the desk. Quiet encouragement. Tap, tap, tap. Maya lifted her chin. I saw the powder, she said. I saw the man. And I saw the logo on his folder. It matched the trust committee's papers. The trust attorney's smile tightened. This is hearsay. Ms. Hargrove held up the vendor documentation. We have procurement trails that corroborate a trust-linked vendor. The judge leaned forward. So the trust committee may have indirectly enabled the tampering. Silence. The trust attorney tried to pivot. Regardless, Mr. Marlowe's children require specialized support. That's when Lucas spoke. He leaned into frame, face earnest, eyes wet. I don't need to be taken, he said, voice trembling. I need my dad. The judge's expression softened by a fraction. Lucas continued, words spilling like truth he could no longer hold inside. When Mommy died, Dad's heart got quiet. But he still makes pancakes even when he cries. He still reads the same book twice because Noah likes the pictures. He still kisses us even if he forgets to smile. Ethan's face crumpled. He tried to look away, but Lucas reached up and touched his father's shoulder. Noah leaned into frame too. He didn't speak, but he held up a drawing. Ethan's heart, drawn as a drum, with the words written in careful child handwriting. "Dad is trying." The judge stared at that drawing longer than she stared at any legal document. Ethan's breath shook. He didn't try to appear composed anymore. He leaned forward, voice breaking, and addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor," he said, "I have failed at many things. I couldn't save my wife. I can't undo the nights my sons cried for her. I can't fix what grief did to me." He swallowed hard. "But I am here. I am learning, and I am asking you, don't punish my children for my pain." The trust attorney tried to interrupt, but Ethan's voice rose, not loud, just full. "I am not a perfect father," Ethan said, tears streaming now. "But I am their father, and they are safe, loved, supported. If the trust committee wants stability, they can stop destabilizing us." Rosa's eyes filled. Maya's hands trembled. Lucas sniffed loudly. Noah tapped 3 times on the desk. Tap, tap, tap. The judge exhaled, long and tired. Then she spoke words that felt like a door unlocking. "Temporary oversight is denied," she said, "and I am ordering an investigation into the trust committee's vendor relationships and consultant conduct." Ethan's breath left his body like he'd been underwater. Lucas cried out, half sob, half laugh. "We stay," he shouted. Noah's shoulders sagged in relief, and he leaned into Ethan's side. Maya stared at the screen like she didn't trust good news. "Is it real?" she whispered. Rosa tapped 3 times. "It's real," she said softly. Ethan turned to Rosa, eyes shattered and grateful, and he did something quiet, private but undeniable. He reached for her hand, like a man who finally understood that strength isn't loneliness. "Thank you," he whispered. Rosa squeezed his hand. "Elena left breadcrumbs," she whispered back, "but you chose to follow them." In the weeks that followed, the mansion changed. Not in decor, in spirit. Ethan stopped staring at the coffee machine without pressing the button. He started making coffee again, small proof that he believed in mornings. Maya stayed, legally placed under temporary protective care while the state reviewed her case, not because Ethan saved her with money, but because the court couldn't ignore documented safety concerns about her previous placements. Everything was done clean, transparent, lawful. Rosa helped the twins create a ritual for Maya. Every night, before bed, the 4 of them sat in the butterfly room. Noah would draw one thing that felt heavy. Lucas would say one thing that felt true. Maya would whisper one thing she missed. Ethan would speak one thing he promised, and then they'd tap 3 times together. Tap, tap, tap. One evening, Lucas leaned against Ethan and said the line that broke me all over again when I heard it later. "Dad," he whispered, "I can hear your heart now." Ethan's arms tightened around him. "It was always here," he whispered. Lucas shook his head, tears on his cheeks. "No," he said. "It was hiding, but now it's loud." Noah, watching, drew a heart with sound waves. Maya looked at Elena's portrait near the stairs and whispered, "Thank you," as if Elena could hear through paint. And maybe she could, because the mansion felt warmer, like it had been waiting for Ethan to stop trying to buy safety and start building it with people. On the night the trust committee chair resigned under investigation, Ethan stood in the greenhouse alone, looking at the paper butterflies turning softly in the air. Rosa approached quietly. "You okay?" she asked. Ethan's eyes were wet. "Elena knew," he whispered. "She prepared for me because she knew I'd freeze." Rosa's voice softened. "She loved you," she said. "And love plans." Ethan nodded, then looked at Rosa, voice breaking. "I cried in front of everyone that day," he said. "I've never been so embarrassed." Rosa shook her head gently. "It wasn't embarrassing," she whispered. "It was honest." Ethan swallowed, then spoke the truth that had been trapped inside him like a stone. "I thought being strong meant never kneeling," he said. "But the day I knelt was the day I finally became their father in the way Elena always hoped." Rosa's eyes filled. From the hallway the sound came again. Tap, 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 followed by Lucas calling, "Dad, butterfly time." Ethan smiled. A real one. He walked toward the children's voices, not away from them, and before he stepped into that warm room full of paper stars and soup smell and crayons, he paused and looked at Elena's portrait. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm finally here." And that is how the Marlowe mansion stopped feeling like a palace and started feeling like a home. If this story moved you, take a second to reflect. How many times have you seen someone small speak a truth that saved someone bigger? And how many times have you ignored a warning because it came from a voice you didn't expect. If you felt something in your chest while listening, leave a like so more people find stories like this, and comment your answer to this question. Do you believe courage is louder when it comes from the smallest voices? And what would you have done if you were Ethan in that garden?